In April of 2019, a woman frantically calls 911 saying that her baby isn't breathing and that she's just given birth at home. Her and her baby are rushed off to hospital only for the hospital staff to find out that this little newborn has just been stolen. I just want to give a fair warning before we start that this case in particular is quite disturbing and it's also a little bit graphic compared to my other stories, so just letting you know before we start. Hi, my name is Yasmin and I make videos about topics that are scary, disturbing, or true crime. If you'd like, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and we'll get on with the story. In 2018, 46-year-old Clarissa Figueroa posted some exciting but unexpected news on her Facebook profile. It was of an ultrasound and a fully kitted out baby nursery where she announced the pregnancy of her third child. Now, it was quite shocking to people that knew her quite well because they knew that she'd undergone some female sterilization surgery some years back. But, you know, the surgery can sometimes be reversed, I believe, or sometimes it just doesn't work properly. So it was a shock, but, you know, it could still happen. Clarissa lived in Chicago with her partner, Peter Bobak, and she had a very close relationship with her 26-year-old daughter, whose name was Desiree Figueroa. Sadly, Clarissa's son passed away unexpectedly from natural causes just shortly before she announced her pregnancy online. And people who knew Clarissa knew that she was struggling with the grief, as, you know, many mothers would, and sometimes this grief was all-consuming. But having a new baby on the horizon just gave her the opportunity to feel like she had some sort of purpose in life and just another reason to keep going and put one foot in front of the other. Clarissa was nearing the end of her pregnancy in April of 2019, and she was part of lots of Facebook mums groups, and there was one in particular where she was quite an active contributor. So the purpose of these groups were so that you can share advice, product recommendations, and sometimes even organize meetups with other mothers in your area who's at like a similar stage of pregnancy as you. It also made sense that Clarissa would make this post on one of these pages because she wanted to give away some free baby clothes to a woman who was in need of this. And of course, this post got a lot of attention. One of the mothers that messaged Clarissa was 19-year-old Marlen Ochoa-Lopez, who was actually due very soon. She was going to have a baby boy and she was just doing some last-minute prep and just needed some more baby clothes. Clarissa was happy to allow Marlen over to pick up these baby clothes, so she came over, picked them up, and just left. 3 weeks later, on the 23rd of April, Marlen started to experience very early labor contractions, and she went back over to Clarissa's house to just pick up the remainder of the baby clothes that she didn't get last time because there was just a few more bits that Clarissa had found. Clarissa asked her to take a seat in the living room on one of the couches while she went to get more of the clothes, and Marlen was sitting in the living room by herself and she was flipping through a photo album of Clarissa's late son while she waited, when all of a sudden Clarissa came up behind Marlen and wrapped an electrical cord around her neck and pulled as tight as she could. Marlen was choking and she put her fingers between her neck and the cord and she started trying to add some breathing space. But out of nowhere, Clarissa's daughter Desiree came out and one by one started prying Marlen's fingers off the cord. And it only took a few minutes from there for Marlen to lose complete consciousness. As soon as this happened, Clarissa then grabbed a sharp butcher's knife that she prepared nearby and made an incision along Marlen's abdomen to get this baby out as soon as possible. She got the baby out successfully and she popped the baby into a bucket while her and Desiree put Marlen's body into a large plastic bag. They then heaved her body outside and disposed of her into a wheelie bin, so like the trash, which is just horrific. Clarissa came back to the baby and wrapped him up in a blanket, just trying to get him to breathe, but he still hadn't taken his first breath. So feeling like she had no other choice, she was panicked. So she called 911 and she told the police that she'd just given birth at home and her baby wasn't breathing. Both the baby and Clarissa were rushed off to Christ Medical Center, where the baby boy was put on life support immediately. But because he'd spent such a long period of time with such little oxygen, no medical intervention was really going to help save him, because he had suffered such extensive brain damage that he would never really recover from. The doctors felt as though things were really not adding up though. So first of all, they physically assessed Clarissa, and they could tell that she didn't just give birth. In fact, she's not even pregnant. She hadn't been pregnant recently. So this child was definitely not hers. So they did a DNA test to confirm this, and lo and behold, baby wasn't Clarissa's, obviously. This finding launched a massive investigation, and the investigation started off at Clarissa's home, of course. When police got to Clarissa's house, the first thing they noticed was how clean the carpets were. The carpets had recently been bleached clean by her partner, Peter, who lied and said that Clarissa gave birth at home, but they didn't have to do much digging to find Marlen's body out in the trash, which explained all the blood and the extensive cleanup efforts. 2 weeks later, Marlen's car was actually located near Clarissa's home, but not directly outside, and that's because when Clarissa was in hospital, Desiree, who, just as a side note, was also pregnant, drove Marlen's car to a different location, but for some reason she just drove it sort of down the road. It's still quite close to their house. Of course, Marlen's family was contacted as soon as police had enough information, and her husband, whose name was Giovanni Lopez, and her older son Joshua were completely shattered. They were able to visit the newborn baby boy in hospital, but unfortunately, because of the traumatic birth, he passed away after being on life support shortly after. This was all planned for months in advance by Clarissa and Desiree. The whole reason why Clarissa faked her pregnancy was so that she could fish out a woman online and steal their baby in this sick way. And the first time Marlen visited the house for the baby clothes, Desiree's partner was also in the house and somehow caught wind of the plan of what Desiree and Clarissa were planning on doing to Marlen, and he basically said, if you do this or go through with it or even attempt it, I'm going to call the police, which is completely fair enough. And Clarissa and Desiree were just like, chill out, it's just an April Fool's joke, we're not going to do it. But of course they didn't go through with it because he was there and they wanted to get away with it. And they clearly thought they could get away with it. For this crime, Desiree pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and testified against her mother, and she was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Her mother, Clarissa, was sentenced to 50 years in prison, and Peter, who pleaded guilty to 1 count of obstruction of justice for his role in covering up the crime scene, was sentenced to 4 years in prison, and he's actually served his time and has subsequently been released. I feel like your life can just change so quickly, so unexpectedly, and it can all be avoidable. So especially with things online, just be careful when you're chatting to people on Facebook Marketplace or getting people to come over to your house or going over to other people's houses when they're complete strangers, because you never know what motive people have. Like, there are sick people out there. That was the story of Marlen Ochoa-Lopez. If you find topics like this interesting or informative, then I'd love it if you could subscribe or give the video a thumbs up. I post every single week, so I will see you next week. Bye.